You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take.
Plan. I'm the enemy. Because I like to think.
You can travel like a Bobby doll. You can hang out like a biker's mom. You fit in anywhere you go. Bring your own style just to steal the show. You shine it so loud and it's slow and you said, drink with the light, you drink and smoke on your bed. Love by all yourself, you know. You roll with him, boy, you're the star of
Good morning, Fultonland!
Yeehaw!
And if you have not seen the movie Good Morning Vietnam, watch that movie and you'll understand what that was all about.
Sort yourself out, get yourself out, and go and bloody watch it. What's wrong with you?
Welcome to Fultonland Live. We are happy to have you here. We're happy to have our guests here. These guys are a lot of fun. I enjoy talking with them very much, and I think you guys are going to enjoy talking with them as well. They've got a great book called The Cryptidnals. It's unique as far as I can tell. I haven't seen another book that's quite like it, which is something that I always like coming across in fiction, whether it's comics or novels or film or whatever. I love original ideas, and I think these guys have one. And so I'm really looking forward to chatting with them about it and having you guys ask questions of them and let them know what you think of the book. And we're going to have a great time. So that being said, Russ Leach, how are you, sir?
Oh, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I've just got so much work. It's great. I'm loving it.
I hear you.
I'm loving it. I'm having a good week. And I'm back to training full time. So
excellent.
I even got to hit someone last night. It was fantastic.
Nice.
So yeah. I'm very, very, very happy.
All right. Well, if you're doing well and I'm doing well, let's check in with the chat. Don Chin says he's awake now, which is good.
He should be. Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Mo Biggs, I am so sorry, my friend. Nobody warned you or your ears about it because it's supposed to be a surprise. Although I did move away from the mic. I hope I didn't blow anyone's eardrums out. If I did, I sincerely apologize. Let's go down the list here and see who all we've got. Pastmaster Dan was number 1 under the sun. Good to see you, Pastmaster Dan. Derek Clay says he'll try to be here. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Amanda B, good to see you.
G'day, Amanda.
Our sister from another mister.
What a gal.
She is. She's a lot of fun. Woodrow.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice to see that you have so many personas. I watched the rerun this morning and it did make me laugh. It's very good.
I tell you what, I've never tried to hold the Macho Man, or my attempt at the Macho Man's voice for an entire hour. And I'm not looking forward to story time with the kids tonight, just because when I read to the kids, I do all the different characters in different voices. And so I get a feeling that I'm going to get complaints tonight. Dad, that you're not doing the voices right. Well, sorry, kids. Your poor old dad's voice box feels like he's been gargling razor blades. So you'll have to cut me some slack tonight. Woodrow says the timing of that countdown was amazing. My clock hit 10 as Rocky started talking. Well, there you go, Woodrow. Rocky's on the ball. Johnny Rando, good to see you. Haven't seen you for a while. Glad you could join us. Who else do we have? I thought there was at least one more person. Jasper Plan 9. Welcome, sir. Glad you could join us. And we've got Tomi Sarkinen. Good morning to you, or evening, as the case may be. Lord Crackhead 33. Good to see you, man. I'm not muted, am I? I hope not. Mo says, I see Joe's lips moving, but... Can you guys hear me? Okay, cool. All right, Alterman Schneily, thank you for joining us. You are just in time to have a party, if I may say so myself. Oh, Mo, you got me. He said that was a joke about his hearing damage from my intro. You got me. You got me good. Well, let's bring in our guest without further ado. It's the Macho Muchachos from 656 Comics, at least half of them. We have Mr. Oliver. We have Mr. Harry. We have Mr. Javier. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How are you guys doing? Good to see you guys.
Thanks for joining the show. I've been looking forward to this. I wanted to try and get you guys in sooner than this, but there was all kinds of craziness happening. And then I realized that, well, I wanted to try and schedule you guys last week, but I had some stuff come up and I couldn't do it. And then I meant to actually get in touch with you guys right after last week's show and got caught up with work. And then suddenly yesterday I was sitting in my kids, in the parking lot of my kids' school to pick them up from school. And I thought, oh, I never reached out to the 656 guys. They probably can't make it on such short notice, but I'm going to try anyway. And lo and behold, we got, at least half the crew here, right?
Yeah, the rest of us are at work right now.
Yeah. So for people who haven't met you guys before, why don't you introduce yourselves and let the chat know what it is you do at 656?
I'll go first. My name is Oliver Liarce. I am illustrator, colorist, letterer, sometimes editor for 656 Comics.
Is that it? Yeah, that's all you're gonna say? You're not gonna say like eraser carrier or anything like that?
Okay, I'm the slave driver of 656.
Thank you.
Comics.
That's what I was waiting for.
Is that better?
Thank you very
Okay.
much. Okay. Yes, my name is Ray, aka Happy Harry Hardon. I am a writer for 656. Everything else that needs to be done, effervescent elephant. I do believe I call myself at times. But yeah, we're just all, I guess we pitch into whatever parts we may fit. So I wear many hats, but writer is primarily what I do. Writing, rather.
I'm Javier. I'm an artist. Sometimes I do my own books and my own stories, but oftenly also I work as a teammate, and we work on collective projects in our books. The last thing I did was On That Border.
Oh, cool.
I was the artist for that.
Yeah, that was a wild cover, man. Who was the cover artist?
This is the regular cover.
Yeah.
The standard cover, I did the art, and Oliver did the colors.
Yeah, and the other cover was by Preston Acevedo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was something else, man. I wasn't able to back that one, but I remember thinking to myself, that is the Mad Max movie I wish I could have seen instead of what I got with Fury Road, because to me it seemed like Mad Max was, a supporting character in his own movie. And with your book, it seems like there's no bait and switch going on. It's like, what what you guys advertise is what you delivered. From the feedback I got from people who got the book, they were very happy with it. So,
Oh, cool.
you know,
you got feedback. We didn't get feedback.
oh, you didn't get feedback? Oh, yeah, people I talked to, they loved it. So,
Oh, awesome.
yeah, well done.
Thank you.
No,
We
we're
are going
always,
to open up a second chance campaign later on, so
Yeah, there
stay
you go.
tuned for that one.
So, in case
Oh,
you
cool.
missed it, we were very worried that nobody would like it, and then when we started getting no feedback, we're like, oh, what happened? But then I was telling him like, well, no news is good news, right? I mean, so far so good. So
There you go. If you're not getting complaints, then there's no need to open up the complaint department, right?
thank you very much. So.
So Past Masters Dan is telling you guys to read the chat. They love you, but he wants you to know that not in a gay way.
No worries.
Not-
I saw Derek Clay's comment. He wants us on his chat.
Yeah.
Or on his stream so that we can talk about Supernatural. No problem, man. Whenever you want, just
Sure,
reach
man,
out.
we'll do it.
We'll do it.
Cool. So I wanted to talk to you guys today for a few reasons. One was to show off your book, The Cryptidnals, which we'll get to in a little bit. Another thing I wanted to discuss, though, is what it's like opening up, building and then running a studio these days with, kind of the technological advantages that we have that studios in the past didn't have, and then also talk about kind of what some of the similarities are, what some of the differences are, and I'm hoping that as you guys are talking about how you got your start, that we can get into a little bit of the crazy history, how you guys went from what you were doing prior to CG, and what kind of was some of the obstacles and the difficulties you guys ran into, and then how you found CG, and then what you guys have been doing, for the past, I don't know if it's been a year, I don't know if it's been that long or whatever. So let's just kind of wind the clock back a little bit. And so I know that in the past, like let's take Image for example. That was the last time I remember a really big splash in the comic book industry as far as publicity goes and the impact and all that of Image Comics. And so back then in the early 90s, there was, the idea that you had to, well, you didn't have to all be in the same place physically, but it was still very common to do that. And so I know that when those guys formed Image, like you had Extreme Studios that was relatively close to Wildstorm. And then there were other studios as well, some closer together, some not. But in each case, you had a group with their studio environment where most, if not all of them, came into the same building. They had a receptionist or a secretary, whatever their title happened to be. But they had a physical location and everybody came into work, they worked together, and then they left. Sometimes you would have guys that would work during the day, other guys would work during the night, but they would at least see each other in passing, right? There was daily contact, face-to-face, that sort of a thing. Now, obviously, with the advent of the internet, we can do remote work. We can do these virtual meetings like we're doing now, where, I'm in California, Russ is in England, Harry, you're in Texas, Javier and Oliver, you guys are in Mexico, right?
Chihuahua and Ciudad Juárez.
Chihuahua Juárez.
Yeah, so even and is someone also at 656? Is someone in Mexico City?
My flatter just he lives there.
Okay, I thought I had heard that one of you guys lived there, so maybe it was just an offhand comment. But but the point being is that none of us are even in the same city, let alone the same studio, right? So what has it been like for you guys to build up your studio in the modern day versus what guys like the Image founders, what they did when they founded their studios.
Who wants to take it? Who wants to go first?
Well, when we started 656 Comics, it was mostly friends. I mean, everybody. That's a cool thing about us is all the artists are local, so we not a local. So, well, you have to be local to work with us. So yeah, it's true.
Very much, man.
Yeah, so we would be friends. We would hang out in my house. We would discuss projects, draw, and and stuff like that until we rented a place downtown Juarez to build a studio. But
Yeah.
it was more than just comic books. We had painters, muralists, sculptures. So it was kind of like a haven for artists and the for the kids, for the young adults, so everybody could work there. They would pay a subscription to use the place and stuff like that. And that's where when we build more of 656, that because people would come in, hey, I like comic books, so what's going on here? So okay, yeah, we have this. So you want to draw something for us? Here's an 8-page story. We might publish it, or if we get funds, because back then everything would be out of pocket. So publishing comics back then was really hard.
Yeah.
So that's how we met Dario. Actually, he just walked by the studio.
Oh wow.
And looked at the artwork and, hey, I draw too, and oh cool, man. And I told him, well, bring your stuff next time. And he brought his notebook and with drawings and all that. So we just, hey, would you like to draw for us, man? We like your stuff. And yeah, and that's how our beautiful friendship started that day.
Wait a minute. So you're telling me that he's not related to any of you? I thought he was somebody's cousin. No, I thought he was like you were Pancho's cousin, and like, oh yeah, he lives over there in La Sierra, and we go visit our cousin. What? I've been fed lies all this time? What's going on?
We never gave that impression to you, Ray.
I always got that, but then again, we're all primos in some way, shape, or form. But wow, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dario just walked by, and that's how we met him, dude.
And so, for people who haven't met Dario yet, he is the illustrator for the Cryptidnals, right?
Yes, he's the artist for Cryptidnals.
Cool.
And so you heard it here first.
Pretty much.
And that's how we got people. We also posted up want ads at the comic book store, and that's how we got our writer for our Undead Border series. So yeah, everyone's local here. And as a starting studio, a lot of people would join in and drop out because comics is not easy.
Right.
It's not easy work. So a lot of people thought it was glamorous, or I want to draw cartoons and whatever. And I was gonna say, and then they met Barnaby, no, and then they met Oliver. So yeah, and they couldn't keep up with us, man. We were like, hey, you gotta fix this, you gotta work on this, and this drawing does not work, and then they will leave. They would like, okay, this is not for me. I was gonna just draw whatever and get famous, right, or whatever.
Yeah, it seems like high turnover is common no matter which country you're making comics in, because it is difficult work. I mean, it's fun when things are going well, but when things are not going well, it can be not fun. And so a lot of times you end up putting in way more work than you think that you will. And even when you're enjoying yourself, a lot of times, if you were to actually break down by hour how much you're getting paid, it's enough to make you cry.
Yeah, I know.
So you don't. For people, I mean, there are examples of people who get in it for the money, but if that's the only reason you're getting into it for, then you're going to be sorely disappointed. And if you're getting into it for the money, at least go in with the awareness that if you get to a point where you're well paid, it's almost certainly going to be after a lot of years of really hard work. And things going your way at least a handful of times, because there's a lot of people who work really hard, but the ball just doesn't bounce their way, and they never really get to meet the career goals that they had set out for themselves. And a lot of people get really bitter about it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I've heard of horror stories about turnover in comics, but it's one of those things where if you understand that going in, then I think you're a lot better equipped to be successful with it, because it's almost like going into it that you have to have a very high pain tolerance.
Yeah, and also making comics in the border, and well, in our part of the Mexico, there isn't a culture for comic books. So
okay.
You had to like be persistent, man, because nobody would read them. The manga boom was like all a su tope, man. Everybody was into manga back then, early 2000s. So we had to compete with those guys.
We are on the second manga boom.
Yeah, we're the second
on
manga
the world.
boom. That's right.
It's like wave 2 and stuff.
So, something about the Dario thing is that as much as I believe that this thing of having a building with all the artists and people working on that, as much as I believe that this is like a relic from the 40s and 50s, I blame Disney and animation studios for that.
Hey, wait a minute. You're calling us a relic? You're saying relics? Hey,
I'm just talking about the buildings, Ray. as much as I think this is like a dream state or a sueño guajiro or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
There are things that the internet nowadays cannot replace, and one of those things will be Dario or the way you met Dario and you started working with him, because Dario is not the kind of person that will be but in difference with Dario, he's not the kind of person that will be on the internet looking for contacts and I don't know, local people to work with or getting interested in comics, because he got interested in comics by looking at your stuff live, right?
Yeah.
So there's also this kind of I don't know, mystic thing that you could met with all kinds of people both on the internet and on a random chance on the street that this is what happened with Dario in this case.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point, Javier. And I know that conventions tend to get, I won't say a bad rap necessarily, but they're not as celebrated as they used to be. I think, at least in the US. I'm not sure how it is in Mexico, but there's not as much excitement around conventions as there used to be among comic readers specifically, because they've been so heavily taken over by the film and toy and other industries.
Cosplay.
Yeah, cosplay, that's a big one. But I do know that there's still a lot of people, whether they're artists or writers, that they basically depend on conventions for getting work and for building out their network of contacts. So
we could make a whole episode out of conventions. I really don't want to derail the theme for this one, but it's a really interesting concept to speak about that.
Yeah. So you guys meet Dario.
Yeah.
And you're building a studio where you guys actually are all in person and in one building. And what happened then?
The drug war happened. We were at that time we couldn't pay rent. Money wasn't coming in. So we had to split. I mean, we had to like abandon ship. No, okay, everybody, we're gonna this thing is still alive. The 6x6 and the other artists there. Yeah. But we don't have a place anymore because we can't afford it anymore. So we left the place. Everybody went to their home. We still would meet up at our house, but that was a time where the drug war started. Man, we left at the perfect time. like a year before it hit the fan.
Yeah.
So actually, I remember that my dad would receive calls from people asking about our studio. Hey, what do they do there? What is it? I mean, and my dad would say, "Oh, they're just artists. They do paintings and comic books." Oh, okay, and then they would hang up.
It
So
was calls. It was
our
calls like palpando, no, to see if
yeah,
you
our
guys make
theory
money.
is that they were going to extort us. So
Ah,
they were
okay.
gonna arrive at the place and hey, so what kind of money do you guys make here?
Yeah, I was
So,
gonna say they figure
yeah.
you don't make enough for them to bother extorting
yeah,
you.
of course, yeah, artists, what? Yeah,
They show
comic
up and break
books,
your
man.
pencils and stuff. Is that what they're gonna do? Like, hey, it's a real nice pencil. Hope nothing happens to it. You know.
I want you to sell 20 paintings for this much. If you don't, we're gonna cut your head off. No?
Pretty much. And you know what? That's not even that far fetched. That's crazy. But yeah, I remember all that stuff, man.
Yeah.
So you guys, you basically you have to shut down the operation,
Yeah.
right? And then the drug war happens, and then how do you guys go from the place turning into a war zone into, hey, let's start up the studio again?
This was very interesting because we would just meet like once a week or once every 2 weeks because it was really tough like being out on the street at certain times. So everything would be in the morning. Hey, come to my house at around 11 and let's do everything we have to do and get you guys home before nighttime. No. Especially for Dario, because Dario lives in a sketchy part of town. So
Okay.
we were very careful with him.
And so were you guys thinking at this time that you were going to have to basically everybody would volunteer their labor and then get something produced, and then if you're able to sell it, then you might make some money back on it?
This time, this is the time that a lot of government institutions would launch contents, scholarships to get projects funded, and that's how we would make our money. We would make a proposal. Hey, I have this comic book, and we would win, and they would give us sum of cash, a very hefty sum of cash, and that will go into making the product, paying the artist. And also workshops, man. During that time, a lot of kids. There was like a strategy that we need to inject culture and the arts to kids, so they wouldn't become the next sicarios. Because these cartels would recruit a lot of teenagers, a lot of kids, halcones, the watch outs. You know that they would give little kids, hey, stand in the corner and see if the cops pass by or. So there was a strategy that if we teach kids art or how to draw, how to write, how to express themselves, so that would be like that would be good for the youth, no? And
right.
And it worked at some degree. So we would get hired to do workshops, comic book workshops, how to draw, how to write, how to draw a comic page, interpret the script, all that stuff.
And at this point, was it as 656 Comics that you were getting hired? Okay.
Yes, 656 Comics, yeah. And that's how we would survive, no, making comic books. We would get grants from the U.S. consulate, from art institutions in Mexico City, and we have a whole catalog of comic books that we've done for grants and for the government.
That's great. So now, did you guys have to apply for grants at different levels of government, or was it the kind of thing where they would advertise and you guys would, see it and then go apply? How did that work?
We would just be. It was word of mouth. Hey, for example, the Ichicud or the Secretaría de Cultura. Those are the local art institutes where they would give grants. We applied for everyone, and we got a few. We got and this is hard because comic books, like I said, there wasn't a culture for comic books over here.
Yeah.
And we started, hey, there's this thing that called comic books, and it's a mixture of literature and artwork and all that. And we had to convince these people, these old farts, that comic books is a viable
Art form.
medium. Art form. Yes. And and once we won one, the rest was pretty easy. And
okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, it would be anthologies. It would be something like the culture of legality for the U.S. consulate, and we had to we had to like say stuff like don't bribe the police officer. Or don't,
I got you.
Yeah, very I don't know, very how you say that, Ray? Those top very after school special. Whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was very like PC or whatever you want to call it. Like
themes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of editorial feedback that you don't really want to have to put. Like, you don't really want to have to put that in your stories, but if that's where the money's coming from, then you put it in.
Yeah, I mean, at that time it was about survivability, right? I mean, you wanted to continue.
So it's very noticeable. I mean, these guys, they've put in the graft and the effort, but they've come from a place of reality, harsh reality.
Yes.
And it seems to me that there's a whole bunch of people out there in the comic world that haven't necessarily got a grasp on reality.
That's a good point.
That's the thing, Russ, where when I see all these SJWs bitching about comic books and about the president and all that, and I'm saying it, dude, you guys have it so easy.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like live a little first. Yeah.
Yes, come over here and let's do comic books and let's see if we can survive the night or something like that during that time.
Survive the night.
Yeah.
Survive the night. Is that why you guys always clown me so much? Because I'm always complaining about stuff over here. Well, now I understand.
Especially last year, Ray. Because
God,
you were
last year was
unbearable, dude.
I just wanted my money, bro. I just wanted my stimmy. That's all,
Okay, so how do you go from making comics where you're telling readers, hey, don't try and bribe the police, to making the comics that you really want to make?
We found out about another art institute, Fonca. That's the big one. That's where every comic artist, writer, poet, everyone in the arts wants to apply for a grant because those guys pay out well. So we found the announcement, and we just said, well, man, let's submit something. Let's submit something for ourselves, and obviously talk about what we live during these times. No, it was around 2012. And we won a grant for a graphic novel about a time traveler that would travel to certain eras of Juarez, and he would find out the dark history of Juarez, because Juarez is it has a dark history of violence, of war, and so that's the grant. That's actually the book that put us in the map in Mexican comics. So yeah, that was the big one. Yeah, there's Macho there. Those workshops were a breath of fresh air for some young kids who weren't told they had other options other than drug cartels, gangs, and maquiladora. Oh yeah, the maquiladora, the factories band. That was like really, really harsh back then. I don't know right now because I think things changed. So I don't know. Pancho could.
Everything's gone overseas now, so there's not that much push as far as that's going on in Mexico. And during that time, I remember like everything was being pushed to Juarez, to Mexico. So the maquiladoras were like a huge thing. They had their own culture, everything,
I remember that too. Being in San Diego, we're a border city, so I've got a lot of well, when I was younger, I used to be more tied into what was going on in Tijuana, which is the city that's just across the border from San Diego. But
Yeah.
and then sometimes, like I would have friends who are Mexican, and so I'd be at like a family function for them, and I'd hear stuff about what was going on. So like in the late 70s through the early 90s, that was definitely the maquiladoras were, just cranking out products everywhere you look.
Yeah, and it was insane during that time. I remember that. I'd go visit these guys too, and that's all you would see. You just see people going to work at the maquiladoras. You'd see people like Oli was saying, all the business was done during the day because at night it became a ghost town, and literally like no one was on the streets. And if you were on the streets, you were probably doing something you shouldn't be doing, and it was crazy to witness.
Or easy prey, dude. Or
easy prey, exactly.
And so with what Pancho was saying, saying that those workshops you guys were putting on were a great alternative for kids who otherwise they'd look around, they say, okay, there are drug cartels, there are gangs, or there are these factories where I get worked like a slave. Oh, but then there's this art thing that these guys are doing over here. So how did you guys go from you did those workshops, but then you kind of had to shut down for a while, and then how did you pick things back up again and get into 656 the way it is now?
Yeah, like as I was saying, we won that grant for Cronorante. Oh, let me go pick the book. I have it right here.
Okay,
so keep talking.
Oli's been a bit over dramatic because in all this history of 656, they always tell me that there hasn't passed one single year without they releasing a book or producing a book.
Yeah, that's true.
So even though there were some hard times or in between times or times where they focus heavily on workshops and courses and all that, they have never, and we have never stopped producing comics.
That's amazing.
To this very day. And that's something real. You can see if you visit Oli's studio.
Yeah,
you see all these bookshelves full of comics of other people, but also all the 656 production. And there's more than 15 years of comics being done, including those.
Yeah, this is our horror anthology that we did via grants too. So yeah. Also, if you talk about the like history and all that stuff, legends and of Chihuahua, they'll give you money. So yeah, so the horror stories based on Ciudad Juarez, that was a real winner. So yeah, this was the book that like started it all, like that begin the new era of 656 comics, Cronorante. Okay. So yeah, this is a book drawn by me and Darío. And written by Marcos Porras and Pancho Arce.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the one we started going to conventions in Mexico. So that's like like I said, this is the book that put us in the map of the Mexican comic scene.
Cool.
And I say scene because there's no industry, there's no back then. Yeah.
So you guys are really at the ground level in the sense of if there is going to be an industry, it's going to be because guys like yourselves and maybe others that are going to build it up.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people from Monterrey, Guadalajara, especially Monterrey, because those guys are usually working for Marvel or DC, like outsourcing, like coloring. And they started doing their own comic books, so that was big back then. And Guadalajara too. There was a lot of lucha comics, and so we were like it was building up for something massive.
Yeah, because correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't it true that for guys like Humberto Ramos to get known, they have to travel to the US and go to conventions and show their work and try and meet editors and
Alberto Ramos, and there's a ton of artists that they would have to go to San Diego Because there was no internet back then. I mean, well, there was, but not like now. No, like I'm gonna send my
Right.
samples now to editor. No,
Right.
they would have to go there in person, lug around their portfolios, and leave their packets with every editor they could meet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, how did you guys meet Mr. Harry here?
That's
Well,
the
you told
other
the
side
story,
of the
Ray.
coin.
That's cool.
That's the other. I guess that would be the other side of the coin, because everything that they were doing, I was doing over here with a different group. It was mirroring each other, and we started like back in the early '80s, and I was fed the romanticism of comic books, of working together as a crew. Like you were saying, everybody goes to the bullpen and they got their desks, and you hang out and you work in shifts and stuff like that. And that's what I grew up with, and I wanted that so badly because. Growing up, of course, here's the sob story. Boo hoo hoo. I had no real friends and stuff, but through comics, that's when I started making friends, and I started making more like family camaraderie, and that's who I gravitated to in high school. And I met a group of guys. We all had the same interests. We all got together. We would get up in the morning on Saturdays, and only one of us had a car. And as soon as Batman the Animated Series was over, he would show up. And we'd all pile in the car and we'd go off to his house, and we actually built a studio there, and we'd start working on comics, But
was this in Texas?
Yes, this was in El Paso.
Okay.
But the thing is that back then, of course, there wasn't any internet, and we had to figure everything out. We had to physically take apart a comic and see how it worked and the ins and outs of everything. And I feel very blessed because back then, that's when Image was starting, and we were like, man, we want to be like Image. We want to do the same thing Image does, but we didn't know how everything works. So we had to figure it out ourselves. And one of my friends, his dad was a printer, so we actually learned how to print comics, like literally how to print comics. From putting everything together, the inks, the type of paper, the machines,
plate.
the way they work, the plates, exactly, cutting, collation, folding, stapling. We were even to the point where we would hold talcum powder over the printing machine because it was broken, and we'd have to be in a sock in order for the pages not to stick, so they could slide off of each other. So we did all that stuff, and we were really, really into it. And then like towards the middle of the 90s, we started hearing about these guys, like, oh, these guys are doing comics over there, because these guys have been doing comics for a long time. And I'm like, well, they're Mexican. They might not be as good as us because, we're American. So that's all that matters. And that was what happened there. And all of us wanted to meet up. We would hear about each other from different people that we knew across the border. But everyone that was in my crew slowly started falling away and doing their own thing. Don't get me wrong. I still talk to them. We're still, very, very tight. We're a family. But they started going their own ways. And I still longed for that family that brought the bullpen brought together, because I grew up with the whole Marvel bullpen, all that stuff. Yeah. And then in the 2000s, when I started talking to these guys more, we would go to conventions in Mexico. In Juarez, I would go talk to these guys, and I'd be like, oh, so you're the guys that do these, books and stuff. Well, you know what? I could teach you a thing or two, and blah, blah, blah. And, we just started talking, and we became fast friends, and it just developed from there. So when the studio happened, I would go over there, and it reignited the whole, oh my God, this is like a bullpen. You guys are hanging out. You're doing work. You're doing what I want to do. And during that time, I was pretty much the lone wolf in El Paso. I wasn't doing anything. I didn't have anyone to bounce ideas off of. But these guys were very receptive. So I'm like, hey, do you guys mind if I just come and sit and watch you guys and do this and that? And they're like, well, I don't know. And they're like, well, I don't know. You're from America. I don't know if you guys know what the hell you're doing up there. But it pretty much ended up being the same thing. And I came in when Mecenas, which is the studio that they had, that's when I really started coming in and hanging out with these guys. And I started experiencing everything that they were experiencing at the same time, not just from the artistic side, but from, the society and everything that was going on with the drug war and, seeing it firsthand. But I had the luxury of coming back to America, to the States. So whenever I'd go over there, I'd hang out, I'd laugh about it, I'd make fun of stuff. I'd have a torta, and then I'd come back home, But these guys were actually, thank you, exactly, and that's something
your brown privilege, right?
Brown privilege.
Exactly. I was bougie privileged, bougie brown. There you go. And for the longest time I didn't really appreciate what these guys were doing until I started realizing, man, these guys, they live this, and this
Yeah.
they're still driven to do comics even though they're living in this thing. And I think that the thing that really woke me up, and I was like, whoa, shit, I got to get serious about this, was one time I went to go visit these guys at their house, and there's this bridge, and I always come back to the story because this really affected me a lot. There's this bridge, and the bridge is called a reverse bridge, and they built it in a weird way where it seems like the cars are coming at you, but they're not really. It's a weird bridge. And I went to visit them, and I commented on the bridge like, "Oh man, this is stupid. Who the hell would build a bridge like this?" Blah blah blah. We went and we had our meeting, and then I came back to El Paso. A week later, it was all over the news, and I think it even made the international news that the cartel had murdered, had executed some people, and they had hung them from the bridge, from that same bridge that I was at. They had hung them there, and then they put a pig mask on them or something, or is that just my?
That was another incident.
Oh, is that another one?
Yeah, but it was a headless body hung up in the
and they hang them for making fun of the bridge.
Yeah.
No, I'm joking.
A sad part of that story is my brother, when he was in elementary school, I think the bus passed by there and he saw the scene.
Oh man!
So yeah, it was very, very sad, very unfortunate.
Wow.
Yeah, and then that's when I figured that these guys, they're doing what they want to do no matter what. Why can't I do that as well? So that's when I really buckled down, and I'm like, you know what, man, I don't want to fuck around anymore. We got to do this. I want to do this, and I want to do it to the full extent that I can. And that's when they kind of absorbed me into their group, and they're like, okay, well, we got stuff for you to do. And so that's where the love affair began, I guess you could say, and that's why I became a 6x6.
Love affair.
And then was Undead Border the first book that came out after you came aboard?
Undead Border had already come out.
Yeah.
Okay.
It had been a build up, I guess. Oh, go ahead.
No, yeah, it was Infestación, and back then the original name, right?
Yeah.
It came out around 2006, 2007, and
Okay.
yeah, it would be like one shots, and then we started working on the whole 300-page graphic novel.
Yeah.
That's when Ray, yeah, that's when Ray pitched us his idea of Infestación, of his version of Undead Border. That would the zombie apocalypse occurred in El Paso, so it would be like two stories, in the same universe or area or whatever,
right?
So that's when
there was crossover appeal.
Yeah,
cool.
And they got me to work, and I created this whole, well, not me, I didn't drive, but I wrote it, the whole collective edition of stuff, and that's something that also I learned through these guys. Very early on, like, okay, you can do floppies, that's great, but what's the end game? Are you going to be something? It's going to be something that is complete, that you can be proud of, or is it something they're going to have to wait for to come out later on? And working like that, it gave me a little bit more discipline as to think further ahead than just like the one shot. So I'm going to write this story and see what happens later on down the road and stuff like that, because these guys were completists. If you're going to do something, you're going to finish it, and that's it.
That's something that we learned the hard way back in the day, because we would release floppies like 16-page. That's the amount of work we could pay for the printers to publish, no?
Yeah.
So we would print one comic and then wait like 6 months to print the next one, and then a year to print the third one, and we said,
wow,
oh, man, this can't be, this can't work, because we're not going to make any money. I mean, and you kill the momentum for any reader enthusiasm that you have gets lost. And then also the pricing, because we didn't know back then, because we would print like 100 copies, and we would sell it for dirt cheap, and we would make our money back. So yeah, it's a whole process on how to charge, how much to sell a book, and all that stuff. So yeah, back then was it's when you guys make a company, it's gonna be hard at the first couple of years, but that was back then. Right now it's pretty easy now. I mean, it's there's a lot of information out there, a lot of resources, a lot of people, like-minded people that could help you out. Hey, man, you go to this printer, charge this much, and do it like this, and so it's better now to do comic books.
Yeah, one of the things that I try to encourage people if they talk about, having ideas that they'd like to do, but they're not sure if they ever will, I try to encourage them by saying, even though it's a lot of hard work and it takes a lot of time, it's never been easier than it is right now because of, just like you said, there's so many different tools that we have available to us to make things happen that previous generations never had. And so, when you've got, guys like, you at 656, where you're in different cities, if not different states and countries, and yet, that if there's something you don't know, you can learn it. If you don't have the answer, somebody who does, or you can ask around to find who that person is that has the answer. And so really it just comes down to how bad do you want it and how persistent are you?
It's not just that, it's the end game that's changed. So it was perceived for the longest time that the only way to be successful in comics was to work for the big two, big four, whatever it is.
Good point.
And it's all changed. You now have actually coming into a comic book industry environment, you now have the choice, a valid choice to say, I'm going to earn money from doing it myself. I can make that happen. If you've got the commitment and you've got the talent and you've got the ability, you go out there and you make it happen. Whereas before, it was like, no, you had to be a superstar artist, and that was the only way you were ever going to survive. And even then, you don't last forever. We all know that at the end of a run, you can just be dropped and never get back in. I mean, I know that myself. So it's not just the technologies given, and the new ways of doing things that people have got. They've also got a choice, and it's becoming more and more apparent every day.
See, and what Russ is saying right there is perfectly exactly what I think. We've been fed this dialogue. We've been fed this. We've been conditioned to believe that this is the only way that you can do books. This is it.
Yeah.
So even now, people are fighting it. They're like, no, you can't do indie comics. You got to work for the big two or the big three. You can't be doing your own thing. And when you start showing them that it can be done, especially in this community that we've been accepted into, this community shows everybody else that this can be done. Of course, you're going to have your bad seeds, you're going to have whatever, but that's with everything across the board. But if you really are committed and you really know what you're doing and you have a passion for it, it's going to come through and everyone's going to be able to see it. And we hope that by doing what we're doing, we can show you as well, like, hey, we've gone through shit and a half, but we still want to do this because we love to do it. I mean, we don't need to work for Marvel. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still have my Wolverine story that I'd love to do one day, but if it happens, it happens. If it's not, I have the Cryptidnals, and that's all that matters.
I believe we have a big guideline that is do the work and let the work speak for itself. And that has helped us immensely getting into all this and looking for small chances to show our work and let the few people that have gotten our books speak of them.
Speaking of letting your work speak for itself, I've discovered you guys when you were promoting Undead Border. So I'm curious, 656 in its current form, how did you guys find CG and what convinced you that this was, going to be your new home, so to speak?
I discovered it by, I think most people did it by that dreaded article that this is CG or this is Comicsgate.
Okay.
And I read it and
was it on Wikipedia?
No. It was I think it was
or on CBR or something like that.
I think an artist shared the article. He said,
"Okay,
these guys are bad news, no?" And I think it was Rafael Albuquerque because I follow him.
Oh yeah.
And then what is Comicsgate? I mean, I was disconnected by mainstream comics that time. I mean, we were all like focused in our work.
Yeah.
So what is this? I mean, what crap is this? And then I started reading it oh, let's see what the drama's about. And then they talked about your boy Zach, and then Ethan Van Skyver. Ethan, I used to follow Ethan's work back in the day with Cyberfrog. I would buy Cyberfrog because he a teenager doing comic books. I was like, wow, man, I could do that, no? So yeah, but then he left. He stopped drawing Cyberfrog and moved to DC or whatever, and I just lost contact with his work. So yeah, so I read the article and then I started watching the videos and I watched your boy Zach and I said, this is harmless, man. He's just saying the truth, man. So
were you disappointed?
No, not really. Because well, maybe because I wanted to see the drama.
Like a big deal was happening, right?
What is this? And no, man, this is like
remember that, man.
Common sense, no?
Yeah,
I mean
exactly.
that's like what I would say about these books or
right.
comic books or
we've seen people hanging off a bridge. You think this is going to scare us?
Totally, man. Totally.
Before you say that, I did see Ethan eat a baby one time. When I went to San Diego and I met him the first time I saw him, he's like, "Hey, hold on a second," and he was like eating a baby. I'm like, "What are you doing, bro?" I'm like, "Oh, it's just a baby." Like, "Oh, okay, that's cool," you know. But it's the truth, man. We've been fed, once again. We've been fed this dialogue. We I don't know, dude. It seems like there has to be some sort of drama in the industry to get attention to us because it is, dying in some way, shape, or form. Right. And I'll let you in on a huge secret. And it took me a while to realize this because, of course, I was all caught up in the drama. But the local comic book shops, they don't give a shit, man. They don't care as long as you buy books, as long as there's money coming in to their shop. They don't care because I've gone in there and they've had conversations about everything that's been going on. Because they are aware of what's happening. And they're like, hey, man, as long as the money's green, we don't care. You can put whatever you want out.
And during this time, we wanted to break into the U.S. market because Mexico that time, we were sick of it already. We were tired of it because there was nothing new. There was nothing fresh. It was a routine now. Going to cons, going to book fairs and seeing the same work and selling the same amount of books. So we were like, oh. And then CG happened, and oh man, this is like these guys like have the same values as we do. No, it's all about storytelling. It's all about the characters and telling the story, and no gatekeeping because that was gatekeeping in Mexico. That's huge.
Oh man,
so,
okay.
So
I see it pretty much like it's pretty much like punk rock. It's out there. It's doing its thing. It's on the edge, and you're always going to get people are going to scream and shout and say it's the end of civilization as we know it. They did that with punk rock, and I like the way Anthony Figueroa puts it. It's like he hasn't changed, but the world around him, the tectonic plates have moved under his feet, and suddenly he found himself in the midst of Comicsgate, and I think a lot of creators are seeing it that way because. I mean, I'm never one to trust the mainstream media, let alone what 12 idiots on Twitter are saying. So, you've got to go out and find it for yourself. Labels, whatever, forget them. Go out and find decent people, and decent creators. And there are a huge bunch of them out there, and a lot of them are Comicsgate. They're making great books. Just go find great books.
Exactly.
It's people seem to be missing the point.
I do have a question. With the whole like extreme leftist social justice wacko mob, I know it's not local to the United States. I've seen it in other English speaking countries. Has any of that made its way into Mexico?
Well, before we answer that, I gotta get going, so I'll be back a little bit. Javi, I think he could answer that. So.
Yeah, Javi can answer that.
So I'll be right back, guys.
All right, cool.
See you around, Ali.
Yep.
I wasn't gonna exactly talk about the Mexico part, but the thing with all this CG and all that is that in my case, and after Oli more or less introduced us to the players and all that, is that the thing that convinced me is that I saw what you are describing on Twitter. A lot of some sort of virtual gatekeeping and a really shit ton of people not even discussing, playing out screaming in the screen and saying stuff like, "Hey, I saw the people you are following, and those people have this kind of point of views, and this fact alone makes me not want to talk with you, and I'm
Yeah.
going to block you." A lot of examples of that. I saw a lot of this sort of, I don't even know how to call it, like shadow ghosting or whatever you want to call it. I guess it's on another kind of gatekeeping. I don't see a lot of in this side of the border in Mexico. Usually over here, when you don't agree with the political views of someone, you usually say it very literally in or even in social media. Hey, fuck you! I don't like the things you think of,
Yeah.
and I really don't like the guys you vote for, and usually it's kind of hostile, but at the same time I feel it's more honest, because at
Yeah.
the end of the day you don't stop discussing things with them, and you don't outright block them and ask other people to block them, and that's
Right.
that's the kind of culture that I see. I see it as bullies screaming, "Hey, those guys over there are bullies. Don't interact with them. Don't hire them." And especially the part of actively looking forward to affect them. How you say, monetarily, like
Monetarily, yeah, through their
their
money.
pockets. And I think. mm, uh, I actually, in our 656 streams, I don't discuss politics from other countries, because I am not American, and I think it will be like rude to discuss politics from a country that is not mine. But in the overall global scale, I think some people, obviously not everyone, but I believe that the thing that is happening is that people are afraid of not perceiving money for themselves, and the thing they see is the easiest is to have other people not getting hired or not having so many what's the opposite of difficulties, like easiness into working with brands and all that.
Right.
That is my hot take, because as I say, I'm not I don't feel faculty to speak about politics of other countries other than mine. But the thing with CG is that I see people outside of all the political stuff. I see people trying to tell their own stories, and that's what attracts me about everything, all of it.
Speaking,
I think so much of the nastiness online, there's a lot of it that is based in fear and jealousy, and not that it's so much of it is not a commitment to an ideology or to a political viewpoint. It's simply that they want you out of the way, and there's an easy way of doing it. They can call you an Islamophobe, or they say, guilt by association. You talk to this person, or you've followed that person, and suddenly that makes you as bad as them in their eyes, because there is no discussion as far as they're concerned. So some people turn up online and they have a particular point of view, and if you don't believe their point of view 100%, then you are evil. There's no way to discuss politics, religion, family, love, life. No way. You should discuss everything. You should be open. You can say, I don't agree with you, I don't like you, and just leave someone alone. But then to pursue people and try to have them, the word cancelled, but effectively try to take food out of their mouths, that's a despicable thing to do. And I do think that it's on the wane, because it's going downstream into normie territory, and people aren't having any of it. Like your average person's like, why do this? Social media has got a lot to answer for, I think, and the innate cowardice of a lot of people, where they hide behind a keyboard and a screen, adds a lot to it.
That's exactly it. Russ hit it right on the head when it comes to that. And from my experience as well, the whole, I'm gonna speak about it because it's, in my eyes, it's the elephant in the room. the Latinx movement, the Latinx, like I call it. It's silly. It's ridiculous because honestly, before Latinx, it was Chicano comics, and before that, it was Hispanic or Mexican American. It just keeps rebranding itself. And the thing is this, like, in my experience, what I've seen, you would think that because we're this color, we would get support from that group, and we don't. We actually looked at, like, what are you guys doing, and like Russ was saying, it's the jealousy aspect, the fear aspect. They don't know what we're doing, so right away they assume the worst. Oh my God, those guys, they're like Ethan, they're eating babies too, what are they doing? And that's that thing that has bothered me so much, and it really saddened me, and it really opened my eyes when these people that we had attended conventions with that were like praising us for the stuff that we were doing. Oh my God, you guys are doing comics on the border. You're bringing to the forefront, what's going on. Yeah, we're doing books. And then they go and they find out, wait a minute, you guys are CG? What are you doing? How can that be possible? You guys are really evil. You're wolves in sheep's clothing. What are you doing? And there was literally like streams, or not streams, but threads that I would go on to promote the book. And I'm not promoting any agendas, any narratives, nothing. And they'd come back at me, and they'd have screenshots of our streams. They'd have screenshots of, like, look, this guy who is in your crew was talking to people that were in CG. How can you attest to that? What can you tell me about that? And I'm like, I can tell you that if you don't like our book, you can move on. And that's it. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say. And they would continue trying to engage me into some sort of, fight, into a confrontation. And I'm like, I'm not going to give you that, because that's not what I'm about. I'm about making books.
Don't give me air.
Exactly. And that's all it is. I'm about making comics that I love and producing them and publishing them and making them available to everybody. If you don't like it, move on.
I'm curious what the response...
drop out for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm curious, Ray. What, just a rough estimate, would you say is the percentage of the responses when you give people the option, like, hey, if you like it, cool. If you don't like it, that's cool. There's lots of other stuff out there you can read. No one's making you buy this. If you want to, great. We'll be happy to sell it to you. But if you don't, okay, no hard feelings. What percentage of the responses are, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just move on, versus they just want to keep going at you and keep going at you?
0%. Everyone wants to engage. Everybody wants to have that confrontation. And like, I think it was Russ that was saying it, and also Javi to an extent. It's about clout. It's about being, look at me, what I did to this guy. He's the bad guy, right? This is what I did. I'm a hero in your eyes, right? And the movement, or whatever you want to call it, the group, they're like, yes, they recognize him and they promote him. And that's something that's going on right now. Very, very, and we're seeing it like every day. Like I annoy these people. I know I do, because I post it and I show them what we're doing. Like, look at our book. Our book is doing great, right? To to that community, and it's crickets. But at the same time, there's no comments. So it's like, okay, we're delivering the work, and you see it, so you can't say anything about it. But at the same time, it eats you up, because it's not what you want, or it's not the narrative that you want to push, or the agenda that you want to push. And I know it gets to them and stuff. And I say them, I had a creator that contacted me when we were first starting up, trying to get into the whole movement, and the CG movement. And he blatantly, like, straight out told me, like, do not join them. And then in the same sentence, he's like, but it's not about us versus them. I'm like, how can you even do that, man? And that's when I was like, you know what, guy, I'm going to do books because I want to do books. I don't want to push anything. I don't want to, like, I don't have any agenda, nothing.
Right.
So if you like it, like I was telling you, if you like it, great. If you don't, move on. And that's it. And that's how I feel about everything that we do. We're just trying to produce the best quality work that we are possible of making. And if you like it, even better, man.
Cool. Well, speaking of best possible work, let's take a look at your campaign here. The way that I've thought about this book is kind of like if you were to take the idea of cryptid, so essentially legendary creatures, right? And then a lot of different cryptids, like whether it's Sasquatch or the Loch Ness monster or whatever, they're more or less their own thing. But it seems like you guys have created a story here where it, I won't say it puts all of them together in the same book, but it puts a bunch of them into the same book in a way that you never thought that they really could. I mean, is that fair to say? How do you pitch it?
That's pretty much it right there. We've made our own little, I guess, universe that exists right outside our reality. These cryptids have been around for a very long time. They're kind of, I don't want to say protectors of the world, but they're like, hey, we live here too. Just leave us alone. But there's an understanding between them. There's a society that exists. With the more, I guess, I don't want to say more intelligent, but the more, I guess, what's the word I would say, human type cryptids.
Yeah.
There's an understanding that exists between them. Like, okay, these are all tribes, kind of like Nightbreed. I don't know if you remember Nightbreed or not, but the tribes of the night, they all have their own thing. But if something were to happen, they all come together and fight for the common good. That's kind of what's going on here. So the Cryptidnals, the way I say it is when X-Men was good, but with cryptids and stuff. That's
yeah.
That's how I see it. But we play up more the horror aspect of the story. We downplay a lot of the human interaction, so it's more monster driven, and then it's a lot of horror. And that's not just slasher horror. It's more like the disturbing horror, the weird stuff that you look up on YouTube like in the middle of the night and you scare yourself and you don't want to go back to sleep.
Yeah, I noticed in your description here it said channeling the horror and macabre elements of Poe and Lovecraft and the artistic stylings of Junji Ito and Gustave Doré. And I really like that. I'm a fan of the type of horror, like Poe, like Lovecraft, where it's uncanny, it's spooky, rather than a slasher fest.
Yeah, exactly. That's the type of horror that I grew up really, really liking. The disturbing stuff, like Romero stuff back in the 80s when he did, or the 70s when he did Dawn, and then Day of the Dead was just like super disturbing to me as a kid. I couldn't like get it out of my head. And that's the aspect that I was trying to approach or trying to get in the book. Something that stays in your head and just won't leave you alone. And you got to pick up the book again and look at it because that's the only way to satisfy that weird craving of, being in shock or whatever, getting that feeling. And that's what we went with the book and the story. I've pulled a lot of events that happened in reality to make the story a little bit more, I guess, grounded in the history that we know of these creatures. And that's something that I was like really prided myself on because I really wanted to get everything right, especially with the legends, because these legends are very precious to a lot of people in different parts of the world. And, if you diverge or say something different about them, sometimes they're like, hey, that's not the way it goes. That's not the way I heard it. And, pulling on that and just making sure that everything is delivered in a good and what's the word, like a very meaty way, so that each character has their own backstory. Each character in the book could actually carry their own book if need be. That's what I wanted to get, fully realized three-dimensional character, especially with like La Llorona, with Spring Heel Jack, especially. That's like one of my favorite cryptids and stuff. And trying to put them all into the book, as many as we can jam pack into the story. That was also quite a task, but I wanted to tell that story. I wanted for everyone to enjoy what I enjoyed about these creatures.
And so it says here, the Cryptidnals are monsters who have been criminalized by human society for existing, the first and only line of defense against the incursion of otherworldly evil. So my question then is, this incursion of otherworldly evil, is this a story that's done in one book? Is it part of a series? How do you have this thing laid out?
Originally, I wanted it to be a series, but we decided to do it all in one shot. And the whole story is complete. It's in 132 pages. Actually, Dario's talking about adding more pages, so who knows what's going to happen there. But it's all Dario's work, and this is the type of work that you're going to be seeing in the book. And we wanted it to be all concise and one thing. Of course, we leave ourselves a little wiggle room at the end in case we want to continue it. And Dario has expressed interest in continuing because he loves drawing monsters. But yeah, everything is laid out, all the backstory, all the origins, everything is put into the book so that you get the full story. And then with all the add-ons, it's just immerses you further into the world of the Cryptidnals.
Cool. Yeah, I love Gustave Dore's
Mm.
illustrations, and I mean, when I first heard you guys pitch the book on Michael Bancroft's show, I liked the idea that these cryptids are they've basically been shunned by society, which implies first that they're even acknowledged as being existing by polite human society. But not only do they exist, but humans are like, no, these are not anything we want to have anything to do with. So they're considered criminals, and yet it's this group of monsters who are trying to protect humanity.
Exactly, and that does come into play in the story without giving away too much. Back in the 70s, really quick story. Back in the 70s, there was a firefight supposedly. And this is drawn from research that I did. There was a firefight in New Mexico at this plateau called Sandia Plateau, and inside the plateau there was a secret military base that the U.S. had agreed with aliens to allow the aliens to conduct experiments on humans in the lower levels of the base, and humans were not allowed to go down there. But something happened in the 70s where a firefight erupted, and humans were fighting aliens. People were getting disintegrated left and right. They were shooting. Military was shooting at aliens and stuff. And that's a very long time. How did that even happen? How did that come to be? So that was the catalyst for the Cryptidnals. That story is told, but that's like part of the story. And the bigger story involves like more, eldritch evil, extragalactic, space, stuff like that, Lovecraftian stuff, and that's all explored in the book.
Cool. So these characters here, would you say? Is there a particular favorite that you guys, any of you guys have, or is this more like, you kind of like the whole team as a collective group? What do you guys think?
I mean, on my end, I love them all. It's both. It's what they do as a team and then what they do as individuals. But I guess what? Honestly, it's starting to gravitate more towards the man dog. Everybody seems to be really latching onto that character. Dario's favorite character is the man dog, and that poor guy, man, that poor character. We put him through the ringer. Really quickly, his backstory. It's a local legend here in El Paso. There's a suburb, and back in the 1800s, there was a salt war that happened there. There's a salt flat that's about 50 miles away from here, and these big pieces of salt were being taken into Mexico through this little tiny village called San Elizario. And the villagers were the ones that were working the salt flats, and the landowners were hiring them to do that. And something happened where the villagers were, they felt like they were being abused or taken advantage of. So they did an uprising. They made an uprising, and they fought back against the landowners. And the landowners panicked, and they called in the Texas Rangers. And the Texas Rangers had never, ever been defeated before or since. That's the one time in recorded, Texas history that the Rangers were defeated when they came to, quell this uprising. The villagers murdered everyone. They chopped them all up into pieces, and they threw them down wells. And you can go out there to this day, and they have plaques of like, there's bodies down here, but we can't get to them because the well's too deep.
Wow.
But there's this one guy that they spared, and the shaman of the village, he spared him, and he cursed him, and he said, because of the atrocities that you've committed and the damage that you've done to our people, you will forever wander the earth as a dog. You'll never find a home, and you'll always be seeking redemption for the bad things that you've done. And that's where the man dog comes in. So it's this Texas Ranger. His name is Deacon Call. He's been cursed as the man dog. He wanders around trying to find redemption. And he has these two pistols. And the pistols are spectral pistols that have these bullets inside that can destroy anything that's supernatural or paranormal. But the thing is that each time he uses a bullet, it's 1 hour that he reverts back to human form. And the catch is, if he dies as a human, he is damned to hell for eternity, never to
Okay.
have redemption. So that's his backstory really quickly, and a lot of people have really latched onto that character. He's kind of like the Wolverine, I guess, of the group,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm starting to like him more and more now.
My favorite is La Llorona because she looks like she came out straight of a Evanescence video.
Pretty much the hot goth chick. There you
And,
go.
and also it's a complete 360 on the character because La Llorona is usually, for me, has always been a boring, bright suit ghost.
Okay.
And what Ray did with the character, I think, is really, really interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, La Llorona is always portrayed as this evil, child murdering woman, which, don't get me wrong, that is pretty bad. But we try to give her a spin as to what happened and why she became this banshee goddess type character, and how she's trying also to redeem herself now in modern age. And we give her like I guess a spin on her origin story as well. So.
Yeah, I like that. Are any of the characters completely original from you guys, or are they all based on actual legends?
They're all based off of legends. Of course, we've done our own twist on them.
Sure. Yeah, you've made a. This is one of the things I love about the book is that it's an original idea, not just the fact of how you bring them all together as essentially a monstrous superhero team, which I like, but the way that you have taken established legendary figures and given them a whole new story, and I'm guessing in some cases new abilities or whatever. I just didn't know if there were any of these creatures where you just came up completely with you guys and no pre-existing basis for any of them.
Oh, I see.
I have a funny story about that, Ray.
Go for it.
El Ñango is supposed to be like you always say that it's a Slenderman, but Slenderman is boring to you, so you made El Ñango, and you made some research and whatever. I'm trying to call bullshit on you because I googled El Ñango and I can't find fuck all about El Ñango. I cannot find anything about this guy. So I think it's an original character of yours because I cannot find anything.
Yes, and no. You are correct on one point and incorrect on the other. So, in a way, it is an original character because of the way that he looks and the abilities that he has. But no, because I actually did draw for something in order to make the character, I guess, more like a fuller character. Because I always thought the Slenderman was very boring. It's just some guy in a 3-piece suit in the woods, luring kids to their death. But El Ñango actually has its roots in established literature. And I think that's why you didn't find any information on him. And I don't want to give away too much, but I'll give you a hint. The Creeping Chaos, and I'll leave it at that.
And the name Ñango represents skinny and tall, no? So it does play with the Slender Man name. So yeah,
exactly.
Now I think that's the closest to an original one because in modern times, if you can Google it, it's basically as if it didn't exist.
Oh my God! Live off the grid, Javi. Live off the grid, man. Come on.
I'm sorry, I'm a millennial.
It's
now, the only monster that I can think of that's really missing from this group is the Güero, who is a middle-aged white boy with a gray beard and not much hair, and he goes around eating everybody's fudge sickles out of their freezers. And so I don't know if maybe there might be room for him in the sequel, but just something to keep in mind.
That's funny, Joe, because in Juarez we had a character named El Güero Mustang.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember those, the Ray or Javi. It was the guy with that suffered. I don't want to say the art word, but
he had mental issues.
He had mental issues, yes.
Okay.
And he would imitate driving a Mustang. So he would have the wheel,
yeah,
and he would be on the street doing car noises, and
he
would park and all that. So that's why they called him El Güero Mustang, because he was a blonde guy driving
Yeah.
an imaginary Mustang.
Right. Oh, that's great.
There's
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say there's a lot of those guys around here, man. Like Javi was asking about Crazy Larry. That's pretty much our version of El Güero Mustang over here. Crazy Larry, man. I'll tell you that story some other time, but yeah, that's true. There's a lot of crazy people in this town.
On and off the internet. Right.
Exactly.
So your stretch goals, I'm happy to see that you've unlocked several of them. Do you want to run through these and let people know if they back what they can expect in addition to whichever tier that they back the book at?
Go for it, Javi. Oh, Oli.
Okay. Well, the first stretch goal is a set of 4 Polaroids. So these are called monster moments, which basically are like snapshots of a cryptid sighting or a tulpa sighting out in the wild. And with that image, we're going to include an MP3 file, an audio file. So it's going to be kind of like an Art Bell caller,
Yeah.
more or less.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it's gonna be really spooky. Shane Davis called these items cursed, but for a reason. But yeah, so we're trying to emulate that scene in Evil Dead 2 where Ash goes down to the basement and plays the reel player and all that. So that's kind of like the type of thing we like to do, immerse you more into what is the Cryptidnals.
Yeah.
So for 6K, we're giving away the Creature Apocryphals, which is a 24-page sketchbook by Dario Rodriguez, which will include behind the scenes artwork, character concepts. Even I'm talking to him about even including the alternate pitch that they did. I don't know if you talked about it, Ray.
No, I haven't talked about it, and I think Peter already left, but we have Peter Samedi to thank for the Cryptidnals, actually, for what it became and stuff. But I'll get into that right now. Go ahead.
So so we're gonna include the original pitch, the character concepts, and all that. 24 pages, black and white. This is gonna be the regular edition because in the Cryptid Hunter perk, we're gonna offer the sketchbook with a sketch cover and a drawing by Dario Rodriguez. So that's gonna be very special. And for the 7K, we're gonna release another set of Polaroids, making it 8 total now. So you're gonna receive that when you back the book at any level. You're gonna get this for free. So right now we're aiming for the 8K stretch goal, which is the Band Dog Unleashed with the Preston Acevedo cover. So everybody right now is wants to reach this goal. So you're gonna get another comic book.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a full size floppy on that one. So
Awesome.
yeah, it has old Man Dog stories that we did in the 6x6 timeline. Actually, that story was printed in one of the anthologies that we received the grant for. So yeah, that's really really old artwork. But it's cool. It's a cool take on the character. It's kind of the origin of Man Dog.
Yeah, if the story's entertaining, it doesn't matter how old it is, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
I could resist no longer. I've bought one.
Oh,
Come on, everybody, get your act together because I want
Awesome.
I want that Preston cover.
thank you so much, Russ. Appreciate it.
That's all right. No need to thank me. That's it. Just looks amazing, and it's so different from everything else out there, and that's what's attracted me to it. It just
Thank you.
It's so cool.
Awesome.
let's do a little refresh here and see if anybody else backed as well during the show.
Whoa!
Hello, nice.
Yeah.
Oh
nice.
yeah, we're on our way. Awesome. We're gonna get that cover. Very
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you guys so much.
We're also going to unlock the original artwork perk for that cover pretty soon too.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, Preston wants to get rid of the artwork, so
He wants to get rid of it.
yeah, get rid of it. I'm telling it
He's got too much of it.
I'm like, I'll take it. It doesn't. I'll keep it.
For money.
Okay. Exactly. For money.
Well, yeah. Speaking of money, thank you to the backers. That's fantastic. We appreciate you.
Very
And
much so.
Russ, we've got a little bit of artwork to show today, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
Yes,
Let's
please.
check it out.
We do.
Am I showing it or are you showing it?
Well, why don't go for it?
Okay, and you got to tell me which one to show.
Okay, so I was going. Let me see here. I had it ready to go and accidentally closed it earlier. So, can you pick the page where our bear man is? He's trying to jump up into the trees, and then he's realizing that those trees are illusions, and he's falling back down.
Yeah.
There's that page, and then the page immediately after it. We'll show off 2 inked pages today.
Okie dokie. Okay,
I think Lord Crackhead has you figured out, Ray.
Who? Creeping cat sounds close to the crawling cat. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's possible. Nice. Very cool.
Okay.
There we go.
So this is a page where it's basically the fugitive Dennis Vedmedenko. He's running. The Outliers had hoped to bring him in without a chase, without a fight. This is their first mission. They don't really know how to work that well together yet, and they're finding that out during the course of this chapter of the book. And so Dennis, being having some superhuman speed and strength, he's able to jump just straight up into the air and into these trees, but he's finding out that the one that he's going for was an illusion cast by a character called Misperception.
Oh, man.
Oh, cool.
That's
cool.
messed up.
And so he's on his way back down.
Whoops.
Yeah. So he's on his way back down, and the saint is waiting for him, and and gives him a little knuckle sandwich for his trouble.
Can you survive that, man? That looks like a powerful punch right there. Like,
it is a very powerful punch.
Okay.
Fortunately, the fugitive has superhuman resistance.
oh, okay.
And so it knocked him down, but not out.
How are you going to color this? Because I like this artwork. It's very clean for coloring.
Yeah, I've got.
No, I'm not saying I mean, not me, right? But
hey, it never hurts to ask, man. So I've got ink spots.
Okay.
Coloring it.
I knew that.
And if anybody's familiar with Cash Grab or Charlie's London, those are examples of his work.
But I mean, is it going to be flat? Is it going to be like very?
Yeah, good question. So I've got plans for doing a premium graphic novel format first, and so that's how we'll when we crowdfund. That's what we're going to be producing. But I also have plans for doing single issue newsprint floppies.
Oh, okay.
So
sorry.
Yep.
we can go back to the page one.
Yeah.
So what Ink Spots and I worked out a process where essentially we'll do flats to start with, and then a little bit of embellishment, like highlights and lowlights, and then that'll probably be it. And we'll save that for the newsprint version.
Okay, all right, cool.
And then we'll continue the process for the premium graphic novel version. And it'll kind of be in between what I just described and the effects heavy coloring that is common with graphic novels. Okay. So it'll still be a very clean style. It'll look simplistic compared to something like Cyberfrog or Graveyard Shift or something like that. But it'll be more advanced than the typical flat coloring like you would get on newsprint comics back in the day. Yeah, it's a style that we've developed specifically for Russ's artwork.
Nice.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I feel blessed.
Man, Russ, you're badass, man. I've seen the stuff that you've done. What was it called? Death Can Save Us All.
Only Death Can Save Us. Yeah, Only Death Can Save Us. Yeah.
Only Death Can Save Us. That stuff is awesome, dude. I really, really dig it. So,
thank you. Well, I mean, much like you guys, I have inspirations from the past, and I'm older than you lot. This is just something that we're trying to do. So, and it matches with the kind of things that I want to do. So,
but I was saying that coloring this would be like very, very relaxing, very soothing, very therapeutic.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the things that I told Ink Spots was, with the vision I have for the comic being a blending of classic superhero comics from the 70s and 80s, that aesthetic with, cutting edge technology that we have for the production process. I said, I want to blend the two together. So ideally, when we're done, the Outliers should feel right at home on someone's coffee table. If it's got, comics from the 70s and 80s on one side of the table, and then, like Cyber Frog, Wrecked Planet on the other end of the table, and then this one would look like it belongs right in the middle.
Just a quick look at something that I've coloured up.
Do you have anything colored already, so we could see, or is it
we
under wraps right now?
Yeah, under wraps.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah,
very cool, man. That's very Kirby-like, and wow, I dig it.
That's for Only Death Can Save Us 2. It's coming out with Arrow Comics, but I've also got exclusive content for the second book. I should be starting the campaign in September. But as you can see, there's lots of similarities between the way that we're working. This stuff for Only Death is a bit more Kirby-esque. But and the stuff that I'm doing for Joe is a bit more sort of Buscema, maybe towards Stalin, that kind of stuff. So it's got there's a bit more texturing to it and what have you. But it's what a great time to be making comics.
Exactly.
What a great time.
I mean, and going back to the conversation we were having earlier about the studio and everything like that, it was a real struggle. It has been a real struggle to because originally, before grants, before everything was out of pocket, and we would hope to God that we could make something back at a convention. And the way that things are set up now, especially with the whole pandemic, and I always view it like the pandemic was kind of a blessing when it came to producing books, because all we did was just buckle down and work. And this is where we're at right now. We have this fully realized project. All of us have fully realized projects that we're doing, that we're going to promote, that we're going to get out there. And beforehand, we'd be too busy, like, we're going to have to book convention and take time off and, pay for gas and all this other stuff. And we don't have to worry about that right now.
Yeah. But, over in this country, we had furlough, so people would be, they even gave out money to self-employed people. So I was a beneficiary of that. And I'm grateful to our government for doing that, because it kept people moving, it kept the economy going. I'm not lockdowns were put over there. I'm not convinced, but the point being is that they kept the economy going. And what you've got to do is, in any of these situations, it's terribly sad that this has happened, and it's one of those human catastrophes, as it were. But we all have to take our lives into our own hands, and we all have to take the opportunities where they come. And my business fell off a cliff last May. But it gave me the opportunity to make my book. And now I've got an opportunity with Joe because of what happened last year. So as sad as things are, you always have to try and see the good in things, see the opportunities, find out where they are. I mean, you guys, perfect examples of, coming out of stories that would put white hairs on people's heads. and and getting out there and doing it and being here and creating great stories of all kinds. Just you've got to take those opportunities, and you guys are a perfect example of that.
Very well said. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well said. And on that note, I think we'll call it a show, everybody. Thank you so much to the 656 guys, and thank you most of all to everybody in the chat. Really appreciate you guys joining us today. We know that
privilege meeting you guys. Thoroughly.
Thank you so much, man.
Likewise, Russ.
and we really appreciate your time, Ray, Javier, and Oli, and please give our best regards to the rest of the guys at the studio. We always enjoy seeing them as well. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Let's go out and make a great day, and we'll see you next week.